630 CHED presents The Announcers. Opinion, personality, passion. The Announcers on 630 CHED, Edmonton's breaking news and conversation station.
Thanks for joining us on this week's edition of The Announcers. Across from me, Andrew Grose, Jalen Nye, co-hosts of the wildly popular and often celebrated 6:30 CHED Afternoon News with Jalen Nye and Andrew Grose.
And Ryan, I think you forgot to say award-winning, because didn't we win some award?
You did. Oh, we did.
No,
But
we
he
did.
won
Yeah,
too.
we did too. Yeah.
He won it.
We've all won
out.
awards
Oh,
at some
you
point.
ran.
Every single
Oh.
one of us. I mean, who hasn't won a little trophy for playing soccer when they were young, or a reading award in grade 2?
No.
Is that what you're
Ryan.
Let's not bring up the bad
People don't
times.
want to hear us talk about ourselves. Have you guys, you've been brought up to speed on the story of Marie Malloy?
Pretty much.
Yeah, she's from Lake Country, BC. Looks like a nice lady. She's got arthritis. And I'd like to state right off the top that I do not intend to mock or make fun of Marie Malloy, but a lot of people are talking about her because when she was admitted to hospital, her arthritis, it sounds terrifying, actually impacts her larynx. And so it closes off her breathing airways. So doctors decided, or at least those treating her, decided to put on a full face, like a reverse pressure, positive pressure air mask, and to sedate her with ketamine. Of course, you know, ketamine is one of those high-powered sedatives. At some point, a nurse that was providing care to Marie Malloy exposed their forearm, and on their forearm was a tattoo of a skull. And Marie Malloy reported that this skull gave her nightmares. As a matter of fact, she said, when I was not knowing whether I was going to live or die, the last thing I needed to have shoved in my face was a skull. That was offensive. And now she's upset because she says the hospital's not taking her complaint seriously.
Imagine.
Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy!
All right, I'll take it. Here's the thing. I don't like tattoos. Not a fan of tattoos. Don't have any tattoos. Don't particularly like the tattoos. First time I saw a tattoo that I thought was the most inappropriate was on a bridesmaid during a wedding, where I just thought, oh, it's a beautiful girl in a beautiful dress, and I don't like it. My wife has tattoos. One of the few things we've ever argued about is tattoos and her tattoos. Our last trip to Vegas included her getting what I thought to be a stupidly large tattoo on her forearm, coincidentally. I hope I've now made it clear how I feel about tattoos. Now to your story. Oh, boo-hoo. Really? Seriously? I'm not so offended as... I'm never offended by anything to the point where somebody else can't do it. And I'm not going to get offended on anyone else's behalf either. So this woman was doped up and whatever, dreamy, and saw this thing, and it ruined her. It ruined her what? Is she okay? Did she die? Is she all right?
As far as we know, she's all right. She
Yeah.
says that she had 2 weeks of nightmares following the incident. And keep in mind that she would have filed this complaint after she would have
Sure,
come down
she was
off the
lucid at the
ketamine,
point.
right?
Yeah,
she was
absolutely.
lucid at the point that she issued the complaint. She says that, in her opinion, medical workers or those in the medical profession, especially, she says, in ICU and post-op and some of the, you know, the more, let's say the areas of healthcare where people are more likely to be under the influence of painkillers and sedatives, she says she thinks that tattoos should be covered up.
Well, 2 weeks of nightmares as a result of this tattoo. May I ask how she would have done without the nurse at her side to help her with her recovery? I'd rather take a nurse with a tattoo than no nurse at all.
Yeah, and you know what? I have tattoos. I like tattoos. I have 5 different tattoos, and I can't wait to get another tattoo. I've always been a fan of tattoos.
I think you like just saying the word.
I like tattoos. But in a way, I can partly understand a little bit of this. I do think in some professions and in some job spaces that tattoo ink work should be covered up. You know, whether it's, you know, you have a full sleeve and you wear a long shirt, or you're in a different job and you have to cover it up. I agree with that rule in some places, right? I have never thought of it in a hospital before. I've never been treated by a nurse or a doctor that has had tattoos, and it's, you know, freaked me out while I've been on drugs or something like that. I can kind of understand why she might want tattoos covered up in a healthcare profession. It's a serious profession. It is oftentimes life saving or whatever,
Sure.
that sort of thing. I get that, but
What if she had too many freckles, or what if she had a skin condition, or
I
what
know,
if?
but freckles aren't it. But I mean,
No. But a
tattoo
patient said
or
I
if-
was
or if
quite
someone said-
alarmed by the number of freckles on that woman's arms.
Okay, but no. What if someone had a tattoo on their arm that says "God can't save you now," and was treating you at the hospital?
Well, you'd have.
Wouldn't that kind of freak you out a little bit?
I might feel like they had a sense of humor.
Yeah. I mean, would that shake your confidence in either God or the hospital? It just
or the
happens
nurse,
to be.
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there on the other side, just thinking that I do agree in some workplaces that tattoos should be covered. I hadn't thought about it in a hospital. This is the first time I have thought about it. So I'm throwing it out there thinking, is that something that should be? Maybe she has a point.
We talked about it at length this week, and it was interesting when people started bringing in other.
I was just going to say,
like
so what
other
other
workplaces.
professions
Elementary schools, police officers. I mean, what would be another example? Where would you suggest? I mean, someone pointed out, hey, said I work at Starbucks, and I've got to, I can't have facial piercings. I have to cover up my tattoos. Another listener said that there was a business out of Calgary that all of their employees have to cover up any visible tattoos. I mean, but listen, an employer can have whatever policy they want.
Exactly, because there's two arguments there, two things to talk about. One is, what were the conditions of employment? So if we look at that nurse and say, what were the conditions of employment, that there was to be no tattoos on your arm, or we would only accept those that were pre-existing prior to your employment. So that's one argument. The other argument would be, are people allowed to have tattoos? I don't understand why. And then I guess when you argue, should they have tattoos, then do we have to make decisions as to what kind of tattoos? Is an arm tattoo different than a neck tattoo? Can a police officer tattoo his forehead, for example?
You can have a bird, but not a skull.
Right, exactly.
Right? And people can take offense at all sorts of different things when it comes to
I mean,
artwork, right? Artwork is a highly personal thing, and don't get me wrong. I mean, people who have tattoos, that's what they see it as. It is artwork, with your body being the canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And we all like different things, and so if you like a big old skull compared to a big old tiger lily, I mean, I find tiger lilies offensive. Tiger lily tattoos bug me more than they bug skull tattoos.
I'm so glad you've never seen mine. It covers my entire back,
I'm
these
sure
tiger
that's true.
lilies.
Yeah, okay.
The Ottawa Hospital actually tried to force its staff a few years ago to cover up tattoos, and this actually went to a labor arbitrator. And the arbitrator ruled in 2013 that the policy unduly infringed on employees' rights. In the arbitrator's words, tattoos are no longer just the domain of sailors and strippers.
Wow.
The attitudes on tattoos have changed. Trends of tattoos have changed. It's not unusual to see someone with their hands tattooed in a quote-unquote mainstream normal workplace.
That's true.
I mean, Jalen, you have tattoos visible on your feet, and you wear on your wrists. There you have it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not covered up.
No, and I was on a news desk. When I was at Global, reading the news with that. So when you think about it, if I had short sleeves on, you could see those. Right?
Do you know if Global had or has a policy on visible tattoos?
No, no one ever said anything to me. I know other people there who have tattoos and lots of them, but you can't see them on the air. But I think in certain jobs, again, you don't put them all the way down to your hands.
And it may not be actual workplace policy, but I guarantee you, and actually I'd love to be proven wrong. You can reach me on Twitter at Ryan Jespersen if you can prove me wrong, but I guarantee you that no news outlet in Canada is putting a reporter on the air with their neck or face tattooed.
For sure.
It's not happening.
Or, even all the way onto your hands.
Your hands, not a chance.
It's probably going to have to be covered up, or it's going to have to be able to be covered up.
Although
right?
I would add to the end of that sentence, yet. Because tattoos have become, as you just said, more acceptable in the workplace. So I can imagine that following that path down the road to the end, there will be a time when there'll be a news anchor with a neck tattoo.
And wouldn't it be proactive? I mean, wouldn't that speak to diversity in the workplace?
Sure. And self-expression, absolutely. And here's the thing. As I say, I don't know if I've made this clear. I don't like tattoos. And I particularly don't like them on people related to me. But I'm sort of like that guy who doesn't like puppies. And everyone goes, well, this is a nice puppy. Like, pet this puppy and you'll see. I've actually sort of tried to do that. When I see in public a tattoo, that somebody obviously wants me to see. A neck tattoo, particularly those kind of tattoos where they seem just a little more
Obvious.
obvious or perhaps aggressive, or you know what I mean. I always ask them where they got it done. What does it mean? Why'd you get it done? And I've had some of the most interesting conversations with people or do you regret getting it done? And people are so proud of this artwork that they have on their body that they're happy to talk to me about it. Now, it hasn't changed my mind, but it has made me look at those people a little differently. I've had some great conversations. The big neck tattoo, and you just think, man, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
But it's interesting sometimes what they were thinking.
But I think that there is still, although I think attitudes have changed towards tattoos and, piercings, body modification, whatever that is, I still think that for a lot of people, we would look at it and go, yeah, I'm not sure. Trust you, or they're still a little bit more maybe badass or whatever. Depending on the tattoo, where it is, I think that I still think it has an impact on how people view you.
Sure, and no one's entitled to employment at any particular place. I mean, an employer could say, and wouldn't this be interesting if an employer said no tattoos? We have a zero tolerance policy, and someone took them to the labor board or the Human Rights Commission, or has it?
Oh yeah, I think it was body modification stuff. I think it was with.
But if I own a restaurant, I'm not compelled to put tattooed servers and bartenders out there if I don't want to.
I wondered about that because this is an honest question. I really don't know the answer to that. Can you say that I will not hire people with tattoos?
I think you'd probably have to find another reason not to hire them.
Right. That's what I'm.
But I'm not sure, Andrew. It's a great question.
Yeah, because it would be. You would think that would follow along the lines of discrimination,
That's right?
So but I don't know what the answer to that is, because that's an interesting question to me. Because is that not the same as saying I don't hire people with red hair, or I don't hire people who are not white?
Okay, this is a huge stretch. But the reason why many legal experts suggest that Jian Ghomeshi, despite being acquitted on sexual assault charges, has no case in wanting to sue the CBC for wrongful dismissal is because his dismissal was not based on any alleged misconduct. His dismissal was based on the fact that video that he provided to the CBC showing his sexual preferences. He said, here's an example of what I'm talking about. These are my sexual proclivities and preferences. The CBC deemed that it acted against the integrity of their brand and who he had been marketed as. In other words, this video flew in the face of who everyone knew the host of Q to be. Right? So could a business, and again, I acknowledge that's a stretch and maybe a strange comparison, but could a business not say your appearance flies in the face of or contradicts what I am about or what we are about as a business entity? And I think if you could argue that, then I think you'd probably be okay as an employer in saying no.
Yeah. My stepson applied for a job as a bartender at a new place in town. Didn't get it. He's, lots of work experience, all that sort of stuff. He's a big, hulking, sporty-looking football playing kind of guy. When you go into this place and all the bartenders are, little like hipster guys and stuff like that. I mean, it was obvious that they wanted a certain look in this restaurant. Oh, okay. Oh, well. You know what? Could you make a stink over that? Fine. We go back to look at different restaurants that only hire, girls that look a certain way or guys that look a certain way, whatever it is, right? So.
Well, it's an interesting point, too, because you think about a bar, for example, and you think about the doorman at a bar that's had problems in the past, and you think, you know what, maybe a couple of guys with neck tattoos would do the job at the front door, right? Yeah. But the two arguments against that is that the assumption is neck tattoos or tattoos are scary. So we're already making a decision that we're scared by them, so therefore we're going to put them at the door because they're scary, which we're not supposed to be making that assumption.
Yep.
It's just body art.
But they're tougher, they're bigger,
But those are predetermined, misconceptions, right? And the other is that doormen, police officers, there's a lot of people in positions of authority where you might think, without thinking it completely through, well, I'd like them to be scarier. But you don't really want them to be scarier. The police are not supposed to be scary. The police are there to serve and protect. They're supposed to be there to help normal, happy, law-abiding citizens. They're not there to
Okay, well, that goes back to this nurse then. She's there not to be scary.
She is there not to
I
be.
think it's actually a male nurse. Yeah,
It's a male nurse?
Not there to
I
be,
think it is.
Scary with a scary tattoo.
Yeah, although she's a health care provider as opposed to an enforcement officer of some kind. So but it's a valid point.
What I care about is, does this nurse meet the professional requirements?
Exactly.
Right.
Is this nurse certified? Is this nurse educated? Is this nurse able to practice his or her craft in the province of BC?
And that's exactly right. And now thinking through these last 2 points as to whether or not we want, for example, police officers or people in authority to be scarier. Their uniform is what identifies them as a police officer, right? And that's, I don't want to say intimidating, but if you've ever seen riot cops, for example, what they put on, or if you've ever stood in front of a line of riot cops, they don't need neck tattoos for you to understand that they're in control. So now back to the nurse, which started off this whole conversation. Do I feel less confident in the care of a nurse with a tattoo? No. So
would you be cool with your kid's elementary school teacher having neck tattoos? Would you hire a defense lawyer that had their hands tattooed?
I might. I mean, the nurse wears a uniform as well, right? So that identifies him or her as a healthcare provider. Given that I have this predisposition against tattoos, I just don't like them on me or people I know. But that, but that doesn't mean,
Funny, yeah.
yeah. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't hire somebody if qualified to. And I said, if I'm being real about this, it would depend on what the charge was as to whether or not I would hire a defense. I would like somebody who looked smart and intimidating representing me for.
I mean, when people, I don't know why I keep bringing up Gomeshi, but it's just fresh in my mind. When people talk about his defense lawyer, Marie Hennon, I mean, some people accuse these correspondents, these authors, journalists of being sexist and pointing out what she was wearing. I happen to disagree. I think a sharply dressed defense lawyer, man or woman, can be recognized for what they're wearing because it's part of the look that they put together. If you think her Manola Blahnik shoes are an accident, they are not an accident. Every single thing that she is wearing, every part in her hair, along with Mr. Gomeshi's, was strategic in court. We know that clients that are defending themselves are told to wear or to not wear certain colors of tie.
Yeah.
I mean, that you give off a vibe. Now, the interesting thing,
I definitely want a lawyer that I think the other guy can't afford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know we trust our judges, or we should be able to trust our judges. We hope we can trust our judges. You want a lawyer that will have between the judge's 2 ears the respect of the court, right? And that's what it all comes down to. Now, attitudes are changing when it comes to tattoos, but the fact of the matter is when we talk about people in uniform, they sign on to represent something. If you're a police officer in the city of Edmonton, you wear that badge and you've got those patches on your arms, you are a representative, you're an ambassador of the Edmonton Police Service when you're out. So when you start talking about tattoos, I wonder if it's not just whether or not employees of any certain employer can wear tattoos, but what the tattoo is of. And then once you start getting subjective like that, then where do you draw the line? One listener this week said to us, we used to have a no tattoo policy at our business. This was a listener by the name of Simon, because I remember I rolled into it by saying Simon says. And then he said, but what we've now done is drawn up a policy that says unless your tattoos are excessive or offensive. But he acknowledged, and I do realize that's a huge gray area.
It sure is. I mean, what if I were to say to my employer that I want to get a tattoo, but I want it to be the employer's logo?
Or the competitor's logo.
Oh, well, right, exactly.
You know what? When I became an honorary colonel in the Air Force, I was given a booklet like this thick, like an inch thick of, okay, these are the rules and the regulations. When you're in uniform, this is how your hair must be. This is how you're allowed to wear it. You have these options, how you are allowed to wear it. Guys, your sideburns can only be this long. Beards, whatever, tattoos, things have to be covered. You can only go so far. They're very, down to the point of when I'm in my dress uniform, I have to carry my purse in my left hand. A black purse in my left hand. My earrings can only be this size, like a certain size. That comes right down to it's all laid out. Your boots have to be strapped up this way. Like it's unreal, but that's the way it is in the military.
Well, that's what you sign up for,
and that's what you sign up for, and
sure.
you know that, right? But there are still obviously careers out there and jobs out there that you are told to within an inch of whatever of how you're supposed to wear something and how you're supposed to look.
Remind me what the nurse's tattoo said.
It was a skull.
Just a skull?
It was a skull.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I have not seen the tattoo. I mean, is it an anatomically correct? Is it a skull out of a medical textbook? Yeah. Is it like a Mexican Day of the Dead? Beautiful sort of Muertes los Dias or whatever that is. You know, the beautiful imagery. Is it like a Iron Maiden album cover? Like, I don't know. I don't know what the skull looks like. But the fact of the matter is, this woman said that it gave her nightmares and she was offended.
Well, I want to hedge the problem with talk radio is it makes you think, and
I know my head is hurting.
Exactly, because now I'm thinking, well, what if the tattoo said you're going to die?
Yeah, and I'm going to take you there.
Right. I'm here to take you to death.
You're going to look like this in
No,
2
but what if
years.
it was? Hey, but in all seriousness, what if it was death? What if it
Right.
was the hammer and the sickle, or the sickle
Exactly,
anyway?
yeah.
And and the big
Now
black
is it
hooded,
appropriate for
right?
a recovery room nurse to have that tattoo?
Sure.
Yeah, it sort of changes your thinking.
And that's why you wonder, okay, so in there they wear their uniforms,
Their scrubs.
Their scrubs,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's, and you can go buy them. Do they come long sleeves? Do you wear a tight, something long sleeve underneath to cover it up?
But like, are we serious?
I know.
Seriously?
I know. I don't care. I just want, if I'm in the hospital and I can't breathe because my throat's closing up on me, I don't care what you look like.
Yeah, I just want
Make
the
sure I
top
can
shelf
breathe.
drugs. That's what I want.
Top shelf
Well, it
drugs
sounds
make me
like
breathe.
Marie Malloy got the top shelf drugs. She got
Yeah.
ketamine.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
that's what took her here. And many of those that corresponded with us as we talked about this week were saying the story is not about tattoos. The story is about ketamine.
Yeah.
Right? People were writing in saying, I've been on ketamine, or my mom was on Demerol, or this. One guy told us that he swore, post-op, that he had died and gone to heaven and angels were coming to get him. And he walked out in the hallway to meet the angels, high on painkillers. And he said later on he realized he'd walked out into the hallway completely naked, and it was nurses wearing white singing Christmas carols to the patients.
No way.
Right? So, I mean, this guy
So
said,
maybe the greater oversight was not warning the patients as to the side effects of this
the
drug.
drug.
bingo.
Yeah.
Wow. Did we solve anything with this one?
I mean, if we didn't have just a minute 30 left, I was going to ask you, why can't restaurants just hire people of a certain look anyway? Is everyone entitled to work at the same place just because they want to work there?
No.
If I'm 600 pounds, am I entitled to go work at Club Fit? If I'm, sorry to use the word,
If you weren't a good
if I'm
look-
frumpy, if I don't look after myself, if I don't bathe, if I'm, am I entitled to bartend at Cactus Club?
If you were not a good-looking man and
I
you
wouldn't- I wouldn't be able to understand
well-dressed, would you have been able to be a television news anchor?
Hey, get a room, you two. What the?
I've seen some moderately attractive television personalities. How was that? Was that pretty good?
What?
I think we found our jumping off point
Let's get out of it now.
for either next week's edition of The Announcers or
Bail.
maybe Monday afternoon on the afternoon news on 6:30 Ched with Andrew Grose and Jalen Nye. Those are the two voices you hear laughing. My name is Ryan Jespersen. You can follow all of us on Twitter and, of course, find more of what we do and what you send to us at 630ched.com. Thanks for tuning in.